Hello, everyone. My name is Michael. I'm the events coordinator here at Annie Bloom's Books. Thank you for making the time to join us this evening. For those of you who aren't familiar with Annie Bloom's, we're located at 7834 Southwest Capitol Highway in Portland, Oregon, in the heart of Multnomah Village. The store's been around for a little over 40 years now, and we're still plugging along despite everything that's going on in the world. Our store is currently closed to browsing, but our website is always open. You can shop at www.annieblooms.com day and night. We offer curbside pickup, local delivery, and have various shipping options available. We're delighted to be hosting this wonderful trio of poets this evening. They all have brand new collections out on Portland's very own Airlie Press. We have signed copies of the books that are available through the store. Just click on the link that's down there at the bottom of the screen that says purchase the books at Annie Bloom's, and it'll take you right to that site and you can add them to your cart. And oh yeah, this is a cheesy little thing I like to say. Even if you have copies already or just planning on buying one, remember it's never too early to start shopping for the holidays. Seriously, this year everything is so messed up, it's probably good to get a good start on the holiday shopping. And the store has free gift wrapping, so if you want to put something about that in your comments, feel free to do that. Let's see. After the reading portion of the event, there's going to be a Q&A, of course, and you'll also see on the bottom of the screen there's a ask a question thing. You can hit that and type a question into there at any time, and it'll save that question in a nice little queue for us to do the Q&A later, so it doesn't even have to be during the Q&A itself. You can do that anytime. Excuse me, and we'll save it there. It won't get lost in the chat. All right, so I'm going to read a little something here about Airlie Press. This is from Airlie Press itself, a release that they gave to me to read. Though we are gathering virtually tonight, we want to acknowledge that we are reading and presenting on the traditional lands of many Native peoples, including the Duwamish, Muckleshoot, Cayuse, Umatilla, Walla Walla, Nez Perce, Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Wasco, Malala, Cowlitz, and Watlala bands of the Chinook, and many other tribes along the Columbia River, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it through the generations. This calls us to commit to continuing to learn how to be better stewards of the land we inhabit as well. That's a great message. To let you know a little bit about Airlie Press, they're a nonprofit publisher run by writers dedicated to cultivating and sustaining fine contemporary poetry and promoting poets from the Pacific Northwest. Airlie operates under a unique publishing model in that they're a collective, so their authors also join the press for 3 years as editors, helping to produce books by other poets. All members contribute to the necessary tasks of running the press, and all decisions are made by consensus. They produce 2 to 3 full-length books a year, like the books that they'll be reading from tonight, usually 2 by their poet editors and 1 from their national prize winner. And all funds earned through book sales, contest fees, and contributions are returned to the press for the creation of new books of poetry. As a press, Airlie is committed to participating in the ongoing conversation and practice regarding inclusion and equity. To this end, they encourage submissions from underrepresented voices and poets from marginalized communities. Tonight, we'll be hearing from the authors of their 3 new titles: Megan Alpert, who is the Airlie Prize winner, Amelia Díaz Ettinger, and Jennifer Perrine. They'll each read for about 10 to 15 minutes, followed by the Q&A I mentioned. And first up is Megan Alpert, whose new book is The Animal at Your Side. Megan grew up in the suburbs of New York City and has since lived in St. Paul, Seattle, Boston, Washington, D.C., and Quito, Ecuador. She is the recipient of an Orlando Poetry Prize from A Room of Her Own Foundation and residencies at Vermont Studios Center, Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, the studios at Mass MoCA, and the Marquette Chamber Residency. As a journalist, Megan has received fellowships from Foreign Policy and the International Women's Media Foundation. She has worked as a sandwich maker, bookseller, child caregiver, ESL teacher, journalist, and editor. Welcome, Megan. And now I'm going to go push a button and actually welcome Megan onto here. Where is Megan? Here she is.
Hi.
Hey there. Oops, I accidentally hit the wrong focus screen. Hold on. Here we go. There she is.
All right. Thank you so much for that introduction. And can you hear me okay? Oh, I'll never know because you're gone. Well, hopefully you all can hear me okay. Thanks. I'm coming to you from SeaTac, Washington, on Duwamish and Coast Salish land. And I want to thank the editors of Airlie Press who chose my book and helped make my book into an actual book and not just a pile of papers. And I'm just going to start by reading a poem that I've never read in front of people before, which is going to involve me singing for a very brief moment. And I am not a singer, and that's okay, because the voice singing in the poem is my mother's voice, and I just come from a long line of women that can't sing. So you'll get the full effect with my voice. This is called When Day is Done. My parents chose a house with ghosts. Where we ripped up the rugs, we found phrases scratched into the floor. And where the wallpaper had stripped into hooks. Read sentences stuck into sconces and lit, we ate our dinner. I folded my hips into an envelope slipped under a door. Sleep, a voice rasped from the keyhole, and the letters began to tighten. So my mother started singing at my bed. Ramona, da 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 dee da 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 da, cutting another hallway into my heart. I also just realized I forgot to set my timer to make sure that I don't go over. So yeah, this is my book, The Animal at Your Side. The original title of the book was actually Unsettled, and I kind of think of those titles as opposite sides of the same thing, which is about how to make a home in your life when you've lost touch with your family of origin, which was the case for me for a while. And The Animal at Your Side is the more positive part of it. It's kind of like what you carry with you always as you're trying to figure out life under that circumstance. So these poems are not, this is not like a diary book. It's not like a documentary of my life. It's more the stories that I have told myself to explain things that I wasn't able to really explain or talk about. So I'm going to read another poem about making a home. This one is called Blueprint. Move into a house where love sleeps next to you, hiding in a mouth all night long. Stand on tiptoe on the porch steps, see yearning placed carefully at the top of the built-in. Protozoa swim under the floor. Share kitchen table, tablecloth, all the whites and colors. For autumn, go on bathing in this orange light. For winter, fireplace, the field or willow trees with snow again. Recent drafts of houses, the bridge over Alewife Brook. I saw a great blue heron once and thought of her somewhere, waiting for a door to step through. Little kitchen, brightly colored cloths, and want to be that doorway. So I divided the book into sections based on landscape. So it kind of goes through, there's like out in the woods, on the water, inside houses. So I'm going to read a few poems from the woods that this first poem is very much not autobiographical, but it's called My Aunt, the Artist, the Liar. And it's like, I have relatives that are as strange as this aunt in the poem, but not this actual aunt. And hi, Reina. This is called My Aunt, the Artist, the Liar. On the path behind the house, we found the teeth, but no sign of the corresponding jaw. Whatever had been forced down to earth had been knocked or dragged elsewhere. My aunt rattled the teeth in her cupped palm. Sunlight dropped a dryness in my mouth. She was not the kind to tell the truth. A woman, she said. The teeth were small, like from a woman's mouth, and she knelt, pulled down to earth. Her fingers nosed the dirt for further proof. My aunt's little rented piece of earth, a house to make her crazy paintings in. They weren't animal teeth. I ran my tongue along the blank spots in my mouth. She'd try them in her own mouth at parties. She told me later, cradling my jaw, little one, we rent ourselves from earth. Yeah, and this next poem is in the same kind of landscape with the same kind of murder sort of in the background. This is called A Guide. Must have walked too quickly or eaten the breadcrumbs dirty. Must have left the path. When the thing left for dead rises and walks, what is the map she leaves? The evening news will call the rest of her the body. What rises is different. Half animal, looks out the sides of its eyes. No, she has gone back for her body. Visit the original scene. Nothing left but a hollowed out rut in the leaves. So, like I said, most of these poems are not strictly biographical. They're more of like, hi, Sarah. They're more of like a personal mythology. But the exception to that is my poems about reporting as a journalist from the rainforest, because it just wasn't ethical to mythologize that. And so this next poem I'm going to read is called Reporting from Oil Block 16. And the Ecuador and Amazon is actually all, even the parts of it where there's no drilling, it's all divided up into oil blocks. So they can be parceled out to various companies for oil extraction. And I did my reporting from the part known as Block 16, which was opened up to oil drilling by an American oil company called Maxis in the 80s. And Maxis built a 100-kilometer long road through this area that's very wide and it's very loud, and it's quite destructive. And so that's the road that we're on in this poem, where I'm with other reporters. Reporting from Oil Block 16. We rode to the oil camp in the back of a pickup on the road that had scared away the animals. He said his story on the electric company had been pulled, and we talked corruption. De hecho, he said, I was a pastor. A year ago, my wife me engañó y no pude seguir. Mi corazón. In Spanish, you can say this to a stranger. No se siente bien? I finally tried. No, he smiled, looking down. No, it doesn't feel good. My back hurt from the weight of the tape recorder. The air of the forest lit us up. Wells and pipelines hidden behind trees whose names and uses we did not know. So this next poem is called The Year with No Address. A train, trees, houses. Where was I going? Sleeping in a friend's guest bedroom with no job and no plan. Across the aisle, a man leaned, wanting my story. He had a house in Newton and a nice overcoat. You're free, he said, meaning not like me. He thought he knew the home I could go back to, solid foundation in the sucking earth, that I could afford mistakes. And I, white in thrift store skirt, looked the part. At my friend's house, I ranted as she folded napkins. She had some ideas about the way he saw it. Her husband said nothing, sorting mail in the background. I could not return the favor. That was the fault line in our friendship forever. A strange feeling in the house. A home, though I wasn't home. Blind, like when you gain weight suddenly and walk into things. Soft blue carpet, a 2-car garage. These things can trip you up. They can put you right to sleep. Even now, I don't like to think about the time when I had nowhere to go but her. So I'm going to read a slightly happier poem because I have subjected you guys to singing and murder and homelessness, or not homelessness, but houselessness. This poem is called Desahogarse. In Spanish, home, hogar, sounds like drown, ahogar, but Laura tells me there's no relation. At Laura's house, we leave doors open because we want to laugh and gather. Laura shares the big bed with her mother, even when they are not speaking. Desahogarse is to unburden yourself, not to undrown, or even to unhome. When I go home, I still don't know how to talk. Casa is house, and casarse to marry. And when you marry yourself with another, you house yourself, I think. In my house, any closed door was opened, so I could not be naked. In the catalog of dreams about my mother, there's one where I search for keys in her white apartment, a place she's never lived. I'm leaving, unhoming myself without drowning. When I go back to the house, it's different. I still don't know what to do with the voices in the attic. But downstairs, outside, in the huge lights the windows throw across the dark, a deer bucks and leaps in the driveway. And I can stand there, watch it dancing. So I'm going to read one final poem that's not from my book, which was published. It was published in the Cincinnati Review, and it just got reprinted on Verse Daily, which was very exciting. I like to think that it's my queerest poem. It's about dating a straight man, and it's called Unsignified. 1. There's part of me that isn't a girl. When she stamps and rages, red lights shoot along the ground. Unafraid of the moss-hung woods, she goes there when the world wants to erase her, or to the ocean floor, shapeshifter, tentacled, writhing and lighting up. Tetras float around her. She sends up a wave of sound. 2. Once I had a friend. We dreamed in 2 genders, and when we woke, we spoke of invisible things. 3. Sometimes your love constructs like a foreign language, from a country where everyone knows who they are. I visit, you push my hair into the style of the women and pull me toward their sound. There's part of me this country never touches. Once, you came to explore the undersea. We'd tossed for days in a ship near your shore. I took your hand and plunged, your eyes to mine through the blue. You took a delicate tentacle into your mouth. All right, and that's it for me. I'm afraid I might have actually gone over because I did my timer wrong, but thank you so much.
Thanks, that was wonderful. Great reading.
Thank you.
All right. And next up, we have, our next reader is Amelia Diaz-Edner, whose new book is Learning to Love a Western Sky. Born in Mexico and raised in Puerto Rico, Amelia writes poems that reflect the struggle with identity often found in immigrants. She began writing poetry at age 3, dictating poems out loud to the adults in her life who wrote them down for her. Amelia has continued writing poems and short stories throughout her life while working as a high school science teacher. In 2015, her first book of poetry, Speaking at a Time, was published by Red Bat Books. Amelia lives in Somerville, Oregon. Let's get Amelia up here. Welcome, Amelia.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Michael, for that nice introduction. And wow, Megan, what an act to follow. Before I start, I want to say thank you to Annie Bloom's bookstore for putting this on, which is an interesting times, to say the least, this quarantine times we're living. Thank you for everybody to be here with us tonight. Thank you for showing up. And I know the smoke is something else out there. It's even bad here in Eastern Oregon. About the title of the book, Loving to Learn a Western Sky, the learning part is because I think of learning as act of will, a volition that is inescapable in a foreign landscape. And what could contrast more than my hometown of Caguas in Puerto Rico to my hometown of Somerville? So I start this book and this night reading with a letter to Puerto Rico, a form of farewell, because I feel like all of us that have left, there is always remorse and a great deal of guilt for having left. Patria. My dear beloved, describe patria, homeland too formal, country no warmth. But patria is food, family, colorful hands. I shudder naming your towns, Lares, Ay Bonito, Boquerón, y Caguas. See, it is always Caguas. I long to see the beaches, your red soil, feel your hot breath against my shoulder, to smell pasteles wrapped in green hope and plantain leaves, to kiss my wise old man and pet your bony dogs. I long to feel the mildew of the Caribbean, filter the marrow of cell, cement, and memory, to recall your loudspeakers shouting promise and despair. I long to feel that languid sun, extreme, suffocating, rapturous, transforming our man, arrogant and loud with desires beyond your narrow wits, who dance and drink and love with the intensity of your sky that limits nothing, who wear guayaberas and play dominoes and make love with just a look. Your mothers and girls, humble and strong, who run time in heels and steel, marking and making, keeping you afloat in the perfume of rightfulness, in full lips that whisper a future as uncertain as an eyelash, but make you believe in God and children and that there is no other earth. Beloved Patria, how is it to be you, especially now, when your children flee, when your soil is left behind in empty lots, the hum, lost verses of a mute song in a Caribbean breeze, this song of farewell. With all things that are familiar, the book in this part, so it's divided in sections, but in the second part, it turns inwards and to look at some of the emotions that are created from displacement. One of the most common emotions from immigrants is that of dysphoria. Hence, this is the poem, Dysphoria. Sadness grows. A veil made of spider silk, suffocating, enveloping eyes without color, sunlight trapped, insects on a web. There's no violence here, just the quiet of a crypt, dusty, discarded, decomposing, into ash so gray it coats the throat with thirst beyond water. Can you mute that, please? My next poem is about the incorporation of the landscape inside, and this one uses a chemical language because I think it is almost a chemical change that happens to us when we move to a different landscape, because the body is transported immediately or almost immediately, but it takes a time for the emotions, the mind, and the body to blend into that landscape, to be part of that makeup. So this poem is a reflection of that. And the poem's title is Tiltration of Winter, or the Rhythm of Somerville. Tiltration is actually a chemical technique where it uses a solution of known quantity, and you drop by drop into a concentration of our known solution. So the drops are added slowly until the reaction changes color. Tiltration of Winter, or the Rhythm of Somerville. By the way, Somerville, the town that I live in, is 102 population, and there are no people of color. Dressed in her bridal gown, Mount Emily sighs. The valley a cold cadence that awaits, a light, a moving lane, or just the present. Renewed by a man blowing on his hands. He forgot his gloves. The John Denver tractor removes snow at a glacier pace under the grayish sun. One lone elk standing ground, its fur a canvas for the snow. A child's eyes peek from under a coat. Eyelashes gleam with frost. A cup of tea steams on an empty table. An elderly woman taps a window. The junco desperate flight as a flicker mocks the horse cast down with his heavy blanket. A titration so precise can only describe a town so grand, so small, so white. This poem that I'm about to read is the assimilation of the landscape, because you can't help to love the landscape no matter when you're an immigrant. Once that assimilation happens, you want to protect that western sky because you end up caring for it, so you cannot stay apolitical. So in this poem, vulgarization. And I'm a mountain biker, so there are a lot of poems, not in this book, but that I write about mountain biking. The old cowgirl rides up her mountain on two fat wheels and wonders, what happened to men in fedoras? They seem to have gone after Vietnam. Culture man, gracious, solicitous, lather in cologne, disappeared. With the black and white TV, host with ties striving for that special chosen word, Walter Cronkite, the most trusted man in America. She takes a long breath and sits at a picnic table. At 6,000 feet, her chosen town below looks so small. With a hand over the panorama, she can erase the colors of this town, the chimney smoke, the quiet streets. If she cries now, who will hand her a handkerchief? Fedoras and handkerchiefs lost in one small generation. Grand Run kitchens still cook a homemade meal, a sweet inhalation for the cowgirl. She wants to stop the exodus of gallant words. The man addressing the nation, it is not what you can do. Her chest feels laden with muck, just as her tires. Mud has hardened on them, but at least it's Mount Emily's mud. She thinks as she mounts her trek and swiftly rides back down to the valley. And that is about words, because at this time we need eloquent words more than ever. So I'm really happy to be followed tonight with Jennifer. She will talk all about words. That is for me the book, Learning to Love a Western Sky. Thank you.
Thanks, that was great. Really wonderful reading. We will, yeah. Yes, as she said, our last reader this evening is Jennifer Perrine, whose new book is entitled Again, Jennifer is the author of 3 previous books of poetry, most recently No Confession, No Mass, winner of the Publishing Triangle Audre Lorde Award and the Prairie Schooner Book Prize. Cool. Jennifer's other books include In the Human Zoo, which was selected for the Agha Shahid Ali Poetry Prize, and The Body is No Machine. A recipient of fellowships from Literary Arts and the Vermont Studio Center, Jennifer lives here in Portland, Oregon. And let's get Jennifer up here onto the screen. All right. Hello, Jennifer.
Hi, Michael. Thank you for hosting us tonight. And thank you, Megan and Amelia. I have read those poems so many times, but it was really great to hear them in your voice. And thank you, everybody who's here. Even though I can't see you, I can see your names. I can see your lovely images, your little space invader kind of icons. So I'm really appreciative that you all are here tonight. I'm going to be reading from, again, my new book. And just as a bit of context, all of the poems in the book were written in early 2017, shortly after the inauguration. And each of the poems takes as its title a word that has been misused or overused by the current US president. So the first section in the book is all written in a collective voice. It's all in the voice of a we. And the first poem that I'll read from that section is World, which weirdly feels even more resonant now than it did when I wrote it several years ago. World. We are of, but not in it. We leave prints in mud, a blaze of crumbs to mark our path through vacant tracts. Snow fills our hollow steps. We withdraw into our flesh. We relax into astonishment, watchers behind glass. We cannot smell the tires burn, the plush pink smoke that chuffs from stacks. For all we know, the ocean still exists beyond the reach of our sunrise, sunset. We won't venture out until it's safe again. We're busy with danger. We have known the best of both patting our own and pressing weight on backs, footfalls on shoulders. Our better angels and devils crouch close, hunch over, whisper, we're not long for this. We wouldn't miss it. This next poem is Losers, which is a word that has resurfaced lately in terms of descriptions of soldiers who were killed in action, which is not news, unfortunately. It's maybe the same news that was happening in 2016 and 2017. Losers. We played the hands we were dealt. We were not sore, unsportsmanlike. We conceded defeat from the start. The crowds through ticker tape parades, filled fields with snow, asked us to lie down to make angels or corpses. We rolled the dice. We came up short. We roused for days of marching through brambles and thorns. In the distance, we could hear their hunting horns. Stags and foxes, we left prints in mud, our scent for dogs. We drew short straws. Our lovers welcomed home dark horses who outstripped us, the doppelgangers who go where we cannot. I'll read one more poem from this first section. It's kind of a grim section, so I don't want to overdo it. But this poem, it's called Mess, and despite its title, it's got this very rigid, grid-like shape to it. It came out that way, and I wasn't sure quite what to make of it, but over time, I think it's a meditation on the American luxury and abundance, and who gets to experience that sense of abundance and who doesn't. Mess. Who served us? Who placed the dish, stirred the pap that clung to our lips? Who spilled the wine on the floor? Who called out for more as we chewed the fat, skipped from one thought to the next, slipped our tongues in the mouths of friends? We did not plan for how the meal would end. We jarred teeth loose on bread. We gnashed and gnawed. We mashed fists on flesh to no touch. We could not help but give in to such fetes. What lush digs, what land of rose and milk? Who doled out this fare, each course lapped from the bowl we shared? Who was it we once dined with in this hall, where we passed the plate licked clean? So the second section in the book moves away from that collective we and is in the singular I. And so these poems are kind of in a lot of different voices. And this first one was, it's called Press, and it was written as I was reflecting on the experience of undocumented people in the US and the ways in which, especially when they're experiencing domestic violence, how little recourse they have to respond to that. Press. No charges, though he deserves it. I cannot risk the law, its long reach. There is no sanctuary, only big-tooth leaves at their most golden, folded between the pages of my prayer book. I preserved what I could. I ironed his best shirt the morning we married. Let him plead his case again tonight. We proceed, history heavy in our pockets. My tongue runs over sockets where my teeth once were, white as the sun glinting on the river, shining through blinds, falling on our bed, warming it with light. This next poem is the very shortest one in the book, and it is probably the most emblematic of my relationship with my American identity. It's called Nation. Go back where you came from, they said. So I remain shut in this house, boards nailed over every window and door, no entrance, no way out. Next poem is called Leader, and this one is for any of you who are old enough or old school enough to have threaded film strip into a projector, whoever you are. Leader. I thought if I threaded to the spool, the dark room would fill with illusion of movement, stills brought to life. It did. But first I appeared, blank, nothingness. I had prepared a song, but my voice was reduced to a hum, a hiss heard loud as a blare of horn. Make ready. They hushed for me. I was an angel that way, no story of my own, just this annunciation. Countdown to the feature, suspense before the show. Let's switch it up a little bit and read a love poem, or a love-ish poem. Crooked. She crooked a finger at me and I was hooked, her little lamb sure to go where her merriment went. I was out of joint, out in drag as soft white meekness, garb to lure her in. I did not mean to fleece or snow, though I admit it was criminal how I overlooked the tender nooks where her veins showed, where I could have followed against the rules, could have swindled the blue that shined through her skin, charmed her red as her cloak. She left me with this smile that does not quite reach my eyes, that cannot lie, that says, here I am, though I make my best efforts at disguise. Next time, I will bare all my teeth, set strange in my mouth, the better to greet, to taste, the better to break open in howls. And this is a poem that's riffing on a little Emily Dickinson, for Emily Dickinson fans out there. Nobody. I'm nobody. Who are you to tell me I'm not? To craft for me a name that fits slack as the bag in which I must carry the clothes you chose to cover or expose my nakedness? Who are you to assume I wear flesh, inhabit space, can be kept in this house of food and breath? Who are you to say you can observe me plain as day, sitting on your porch, sleeping in your bed, standing in your kitchen, cooling my head under the sink's tap? We are not a pair. I do not make a sound. Do not disturb the air with movement or voice. I do not fill my hollows with song. Do not stretch stiff limbs at dawn. Do not make charms to ward off the void. You think you're the true nobody. You could be. The trick's not to disappear. The trick is to learn you've never been here. And I'll wrap up with a couple of poems from the last section, which is sort of a coda to the book. And the poems in the last section, there's 4 of them, and they're Make America Great and Again. So I'll read America. We claim you as our own. Stone we heft, cast first and last. No sin, no shame in our past. We tame you. Plant this flag that grows in straight rows, keeps watch, blots out weeds that sneak through cracks. We name you, land of the smack that makes us see stars, home of the belt that stripes our backs. I'll end with great. Let crones battle over east and west. Let girls fall asleep, poppy fields lush and red. Let roads appear gold. Let strangers link arms, march off toward our greener pastures. We will grant them entrance, help them wake to find it wasn't a dream. It was no place like home. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you. And thanks to everyone. I don't see any questions in our Ask a Question thing down here. So it's at the bottom of the screen down there. Ask a question. You're also welcome to type it into the chat. I think I can find it over there. And let's get everyone untoggled here so you can see their faces again and ask them some questions.
My hair.
Uh-oh, did I catch you in the middle of redoing your hair? All right. Here we are again. You folks have questions for these wonderful poets? You must have some questions. There's the question. Here we go. All right. Nancy Knowles wants to know, what is the role of poetry in this era of disaster? Good question. Anyone have a thought?
The question was, what is the world, or what is the
Role of poetry in this era of disaster?
the root of, for me, I think there has never been a time when we need art more than we need it right at this moment. All art forms. But there is something about poetry that, because it's so immediate, at this time where it's hard to actually concentrate on anything, a poem can just bring you there so quickly. So I think poetry has a heck of a lot of impact at this time, more than ever, I think. I mean, we need it. It's like air. We need oxygen. And I think poems do that for us.
I feel like
Thank
it's
you.
got I feel like it's got many, many roles, but I think the role it plays for me is it feels like the opposite of doom scrolling, like where I just, maybe you too get sucked into this vortex of just consuming information and feeling more and more panicked and exhausted and angry about it. And for me, even poems that make me feel angry and or deeply saddened, they allow me to sit with it in a way that is just with that, so that I can really think through how I want to respond to the thing that is making me angry or sad, instead of just being sucked down into the deep well by it. So that's one thing that it does. I know that for other people it does other things too.
Yeah, I feel like just listening to Amelia and Jennifer tonight, it's like making sort of songs out of the collective pain that we're going through is really important. And we spend a lot of time kind of divided from ourselves internally, and listening to these poems, like, it brings me back to myself. It brings me closer to my own heart. And that's where we need to act from, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we have another question here from Jennifer Perrine. Do you find it harder to write in these times? Good question.
I'm going to say yes and no, but I feel like my writing is, I still am able to write fairly easily because it feels somewhat therapeutic to me just to write something. I think less of it is something that I would want to show other human beings because it's pretty chaotic and rambly right now. So maybe harder to write well, or to write for publication or something like that, but easier to make myself write because I know I need it.
You others?
I say yes and no also. I think that just over the past few years, I do get more to the point where I need to take breaks a lot from just, from being close to the pain of what we're all going through, for sure. Yeah.
Amelia?
I think the hardest part right now is trying to concentrate, but it is also the essential part. So I think without being able to write, I might lose my mind during this time. So even though it's hard to write, the practice of writing, of forcing myself to having to concentrate on something besides what is being spewed in the media and what is happening to our lovely state, and what is happening and continues to happen to us. It is a freedom to be able to immerse yourself in words. But it is a hard practice. I mean, it's an exercise just as much as getting on my mountain bike and going up Mount Emily. I have to force myself to do it, but once I'm in it, I am so very grateful to be able to be in it.
Well said. Any other questions from anybody else? I don't see anything else in there at the moment. If not, then we can wrap it up and say good night to everyone. How's that sound? All right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all for this really wonderful reading, and thanks to Airlie Press. It was really great. Yeah, thanks everyone for attending. See you at another event very soon. And this event is being recorded, so you can come back to the same link and watch it again. You can share it with friends, and you can come back and still click this link at the bottom to buy some books if you like, or head on over to www.anyblooms.com and buy some books over there. And yeah, thank you so much for your time and attention and wonderful questions and comments tonight. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Namaste.